Hey friends, how's it going? So I want to do a lesson today on slap strumming. This is a question that came in, and by no doubt you've seen me do this in a lot of my videos just by sort of second nature as I'm playing through a lot of my songs. It's a technique that I've sort of struggled with in my early years of guitar. I was fundamentally doing it wrong. I thought it was all done with your chord shape hand, but in fact it is something that's done with your strumming hand. And what it entails basically, and I'll zoom in 1 minute, basically, it involves a sort of percussive hit on the guitar that's done in a way where you're sort of playing all the strings muted. And when you're playing a chord shape, it's going to sound like... right? And what that does is it adds a nice percussive sound. It's almost like you have a drum set sort of with you. You know, if you're playing solo acoustic guitar and you don't have that drummer next to you, this is a great way to sort of get that sound of the drum, right? On the backbeat, the 2 and the 4 count, right? The 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, right? Where the snare drum would be in a full band, you're sort of imitating that with your sort of right hand. So I'm going to show you what is required to do this. It's fundamentally a lot more simple than I thought it was at first, right? Again, I thought it was initially done by sort of lifting up your chord hand, and it gave me lots of trouble at first, but really it's something that I sort of stumbled onto in the last couple years, and now I'm really glad I've sort of worked it out, because it's something that just, you know, it's fun using it on some songs. Other songs you don't use it because you don't want that effect, but it's a great little tool to have in your bag of tricks. So let's zoom on in, and we're going to look at this hand right here and talk about the different ways you can sort of achieve this effect, and you'll be on your way in no time. So quick reminder is check out the website playsongnotes.com for a write-up on this lesson and all my other lessons. But with that said, y'all, let's get into this zoom and have some fun with slap strumming. All right, so let's take a closer look at this here slap strum technique. So what's going on here? So there's two things going on. I think the most important thing is with your strumming hand, what's going to happen is you're going to have this right part of your hand, this sort of fleshy part, sort of under your pinky and the side, sort of diagonal part of your hand. It's going to be hitting the strings, and it's going to, if you hit all the strings and you strum, check this out. I'm hitting all 6 strings there, right? But because my right hand is laying against the strings, those strings can't ring out. So that makes this a muted sound. Now, if I wasn't on the strings would make their sound, right? Now I have no left hand chord there. So if I had an E major, for example, okay, that's with no palm on the strings, but with the palm there, it doesn't matter if my hand's there or not, my left hand, my chord hand, because my right hand, my strumming hand, is muting those strings. But what's happening with the slap strum is that this sort of hand is going to hit the strings at like the last possible second. Okay, so let's slow it down. So basically what I'm doing there is I'm kind of bringing it right before the string hits. Okay, so my pick is doing the same motion. It's really this palm is coming down on the select beats to make the sort of strings all mute. And it's really a matter of just practicing. Number one, practice it by just getting your hands there and not moving this hand first, right? And do an E major chord, for example, or any chord. It doesn't matter what shape. And be able to strum and have all 6 strings be perfectly muted, okay? That's the first step. The next step is to do that, but kind of come into it, right? Your right hand's not on the strings, and then so here what I do is I have a beat, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And basically I'm strumming on the count, the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, but I'm on the 2 and the 4 count, I'm moving my right hand down. And again, the key is you want your palm here to hit the strings just before the pick does. You can get there way before the pick does if you want, but it's actually not ideal, because what's going to happen is you're going to kill you're going to kill the strings from making their ringing sound before the pick hits. And that kind of ruins the illusion of the rhythm, right? The idea is to have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to take some practice on your part. And again, no matter what chord you're playing, it could be a D minor, to an A. Doesn't matter. Open chord, bar chord, doesn't matter. You want to basically keep your strumming on a constant rhythm. No, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the simplest. And on those 2 and the 4 counts, you want to get your right hand to hit the strings evenly. So it's hitting all 6 strings right before your pick goes down. And again, the best way to practice it is first just be able to do this, okay? Put your right hand against it, and with nothing else, with no left hand on there, be able to sort of, and you'll see if you really get some velocity and explosive energy with that pick, you kind of get that like muted, cool, percussive effect already with just your picking hand, okay? So that's the first part. Now the second part of this slap strum technique, and I give Justin Sanderco credit in his video for explaining this, but basically, so there's this idea of using your right hand to really come into the strings and add in some real like arm force there, because all this that I showed you in the first step, that's all like finger and hand, right? But this is, and this is gonna, if you combine it right, you combine this, the sort of like more ballistic energy with this, right? This more like acute, explosive energy of the hand. It's gonna create this effect, right? So a lot of that sound is coming from my arm coming into the strings. Now this is a separate skill to practice. And what I'll say is a good way to practice this is to put down your pick and just basically try to mess with hitting the strings, right? And you're gonna find if you hit them up here, it's gonna sound like wood. If you hit them down here, and that kind of works, but basically anywhere between the sound hole and then the sort of the saddle down here with the guitar, you wanna hit them. But the key is like try to, hit the strings and only hit the strings. Try not to you don't wanna knock the guitar because that's a totally different percussive technique. You really wanna kinda come in hard, and this is just to get a feel for what is possible, okay? What I'm doing there is I'm sort of hitting it with the sort of flat part of my fist, and that's mainly to give me an idea of like how these strings react as percussive parts of the guitar, okay? Now when you have your pick, you're not gonna be knocking on it like this. You're kind of gonna be hitting it with the side, but I think that it's good just get familiar with hitting your guitar, and you kind of hear there, the strings are making a little bit of a sound. I think that's a little bit inevitable sometimes. That's okay, because ultimately you're gonna have your hand up here. But basically, let's try some strumming patterns now, okay? And we're gonna sort of combine those at the same time. We're gonna hit, and we're also gonna be doing this at the same time. So it's like they sort of happen both at once, okay? So one is just doing E, down, up, drop, up, down, up, drop, up, down, up, drop, up, down, up, drop. A7 to E, to B7, to E. Okay, that's one. Now, I think bar chords sound really good with this. I think the first song I really was learning to play back when I started guitar that really made me feel, how do I get that percussive sound, is Flake by Jack Johnson, right? It goes from a D minor on the 5th fret to an F down on the 1st fret, up to a B flat, 6th fret, same position, same shape as the F, down to an F, right? So. Okay, so that's another one. We could do a C, F, G, right? Like Violent Femmes, American Music, right? Down, up, top, up, 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 down, up, top. I like American music. I like all kinds of music. Didn't know the music saved my soul, baby. baby. Okay, so lots of fun. I think the chord that I have a hard time with this is the D major chord, because you're sort of all your left hand fingers are up here on the more thinner strings, right? And it really requires you to have mastery over your right hand when it comes to muting and doing your slap strum on these thicker strings, because you can't cheat by having your left hand do it up here. Okay, that's as opposed to the E chord, where you can let go of your left hand. And by let go, what I mean by that is instead of pressing down on the strings, you're going to loosen up your left hand. And that's kind of muting a lot of the strings, right? Just by virtue of your left hand. So that's a little bit of a way to cheat when you do this technique. And maybe that's okay if you want to sort of make it happen on a pinch. But in an ideal world, you could do it on the E. And you also can do it on a D. Or any other chord shape.